We now leave the goddess and visit with two more ladies. Well, here I am sitting between sweet Lorraine and lovely Louise, two ladies I'm sure you'll remember because we all first met them a little over a year ago on a video log. Well, since we first met, these two ladies have moved quite a bit. In fact, their move is what this video log update is all about. Now, these two ladies, along with Ironfoot Eva and the Miner 49er, are part of a rather remarkable collection of authentic folk art. Here's the story. Back in 1941, a former government trapper with a 7th grade education and boundless energy moved to Southern California from Michigan, bringing with him his wife and 4 children. His name was John Ian, and he was a real character who preferred to be called Old Trapper. As soon as he got to California, he bought a vacant lot in Sun Valley and built a motel. He also began to create characters out of cement, characters from the Old West. Now, Old Trapper was completely self-taught, never took an art lesson in his life, but he loved the Old West so much, this project became his passion. He modeled the faces after those of his family, painted the cement with bright enamel, and installed the whole congregation in his front garden, dubbed appropriately enough Boot Hill, because there's also a collection of humorous tombstones all over the place. Well, the whole thing grew and grew and eventually filled the front of the motel and overflowed into outdoor display cases. Old Trapper died in 1981, but his collection lives on. In fact, it's been designated an official California historical landmark. His daughter, Rosemarie Farish, took me on a tour of the place, which requires some fancy footwork, and introduced me to some members of the family. Now, who is this over here?
This is my niece Judith, alias Clementine.
He must have liked her because he's really got her flossied up.
He loved her very much. It was his oldest granddaughter.
And next to her is?
My brother Clifford, alias Miner 49er.
Miner 49er. And last but not least, if you would go over and sit by the statue of yourself, I want to see what kind of a likeness he was able to do of you. Two-Gun Rosie, eh?
Mm-hmm.
You think you all look alike?
When I was younger, yes.
Now, this is your brother?
No, it is my brother-in-law, George.
Your brother-in-law, George, who is portrayed as Lonesome George here.
Correct.
How long would it take him to make a big figure like old Lonesome George here?
3 to 6 months with daily care of wetting burlap sacks, smoothing the finishes, adding details, and then finally painting them.
So this took him up to 6 months to make something like
Depending
this.
on, and as much as maybe a year on the massive, bigger-than-life statues out front.
Tell me, how did he get his ideas? What would he get his ideas from?
Just from within his head. Just in his head. No one really knows. He just go off and do things without even talking about it.
Did he use a mold on these things?
No molds. All hand freelance.
So he would just...
That's why they're out of proportion. There won't be 2 legs that are the same hardly or anything else. Everything's out of proportion.
So he would just mold them with his hands?
Hands, chisel, no modern tools, no electric tools. Faces were done by a live mass process where he'd lay us on a cot, grease our faces, put tubes up our nose and our mouth.
So you could breathe.
And a tapping process. You kept tapping as long as you were okay. If you quit tapping, then he knew you were in trouble. None of us ever had to pull off. I was the closest. If you look, I got a pinched line where I started to panic, and then I came back out of it, and he finished it.
Look, now we're right in the middle of Boot Hill over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
How would he come up with all these slogans?
He enjoyed coming up with words. My father really loved poetry, and I wouldn't doubt that he sat and read some poetry books. He thought about it. He had us kids give in feedback, friends give in feedback. He might have even copied stuff from old-time Boot Hills. He traveled across the U.S. 13 times. I'm sure he had his opportunities to obtain information.
Did he see this as art? How did he perceive this?
My father did not consider himself an artist. It was a hobby and a pastime to leave a memorial to his family. He enjoyed doing it. It was something to keep his mind and his hands active, but he did not have any idea that he was creating art.
Well, a lot has happened since I first visited Old Trapper's Lodge over 2 years ago. The adjoining Burbank Airport expanded and bought the land where the motel and all the folk art sat, which meant the family had to either see the statues destroyed or quickly find a new home for them. Well, we broadcast an appeal to our viewers for help and got a lot of responses, one of which turned out to be just perfect. And recently, the giant and extremely heavy concrete statues were hoisted and loaded and then transported to their new home. And what an ideal home it is, because Mr. Ian's folk art, boot hill and all, now occupies a hillside in Cleveland Park, on the agriculture campus at Pierce College in Woodland Hills.
We're very pleased because we see this as becoming one of the focal points in our agricultural area. We have tours of upwards of 10,000 school children every year, and they meet in this part of campus. They visit the livestock on campus. They take a tour, and I can envision them at the end having a picnic in this area here, getting their pictures taken with the various statues. And it's going to make an already memorable experience an even better one for youth. We have a harvest festival here at the end of October, and we're expecting that the San Fernando Valley Fair will be on campus here. So it was her father's wish that the place be visited as well too, particularly by young people, and I'm confident that this is absolutely the best place in the valley for that part of his dream to be fulfilled.
So this really was a perfect ending to a story that could have been not so perfect.
Exactly. It was a dream come true. It was something that the family really didn't anticipate happening. It was very special. We can only thank Mr. Moyer and the college for all their interest and effort, and that Dad's treasures have a home.
So in a day when so many landmarks which connect us to our past are being destroyed, chalk one up for the good guys. Mr. Ian's folk art deemed important enough to be declared an official California historical landmark, has been saved. Saved because family members weren't willing to see their father's work lost. And saved because the people at Pierce College were sensitive enough to help preserve this California treasure. Well, I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. I told you it was going to be a little bit of everything. I'd like to thank everyone involved in the program for sharing their stories with us. And of course, I'd like to thank you for watching. Until next time, I'm Huell Hauser.